Hello everyone, this is Josh from Riscos Wrenches, and behind me is my 1992 Pontiac Firebird. The last time you guys saw this thing, we got it running for the first time in about 2 decades. Oh! Yeah! 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 Nobody really knows how long this thing's been parked, but everything points to right around 05, 04, 06, right around in there. So this thing has basically been parked 2 decades or really, really close to 2 decades. It's currently 2025, so yeah, basically 2 decades. But in this video, we're gonna be trying to get this thing driving under its own power. Now, I obviously have to hook up a fuel system because the fuel pump in the tank is junk. I'm gonna cut a hole in the floor because, as you guys know, this thing is a rotten piece of crap, and I don't really care about, keeping the floors perfect or anything like that because they're already all falling apart. But I'm gonna cut a hole in there, pull the fuel pump out of the tank, and look inside the tank. If it's super, super rusty, I'm just gonna run a boat gas tank, make my own fuel pump and everything like that. If it's super clean on the inside, I'm gonna vacuum it all out. Well, not vacuum it all out, but suck it all out with the pump. And then put a new fuel pump in it, and then hopefully that TBI on the motor might actually work. If that's not the case, if that doesn't work, I have a 4-barrel intake and a carburetor I can throw on this thing and then just run it off clickety-clackety electric fuel pump. Once that fuel system's sorted out, we can let this thing idle for a little bit, make sure it's got good fuel pressure. I can throw a belt on it. I have a belt inside my shop for my old 350, which is the same belt design as this because I cut it off on the last episode thinking that maybe one of the pulleys was locked up, keeping this motor from turning. It was not. Once we get that, we can see, see if power steering works, see if the alternator works, see if the water pump works, make sure it doesn't overheat, nothing like that. And if that's good, we can throw some tires on this thing, lay it down off the jack, and see what happens with this transmission. We did confirm that it does move the rear tires up on a jack, but that doesn't mean much for an automatic. Them clutches could be completely junk. We could set this thing on the ground, and it could not go anywhere at all. So we have our work cut out for us right here. But without further ado, let's get into it. Let's cut a hole in the trunk and look at that fuel tank and see what's what. All right. Well, I have my fuel pump access door cutter. This is a specialty tool. You have to order these on the government website. They only make them for cutting fuel pump holes, nothing else. And I got my safety glasses. I'm not even going to use safety squints. I'm going to be real professional about it this time. Oh yeah. Holy crap. All right, it's not 2 layers. It's just that full of dirt. Yeah, I'd say this thing was driven down gravel roads a few times. Wow. It's like fine powder. That's actually impressive. All right, I guess I need to cut it out a little bit more and keep going back until I can actually get to the fuel lines and everything. So I'm gonna keep marring this thing up and destroying its originality. Oh my God, it's not gonna have an original fuel pump anymore. It's not gonna have the numbers matching air in the tires. Holy crap. Look at that. Oh my Lord. That poor fuel pump. That poor fuel pump. I know exactly the tool for this. Holy crap, the amount of rust on this pickup is not giving me confidence. Alright. Yep, your flashing. It's oh yeah. See, that's nice and yummy. That's what a fuel tank should look like. You should be able to see the sky through the fuel tank. That's a good sign. So yeah, that's junk. But like I said, I can nip these lines off and plug them into them, and then put just a little 5-gallon boat tank or 10-gallon boat tank or whatever right back here with a clickety-clackety fuel pump on it, fuel pressure regulator, hook it right up to the factory lines, and kaboom. All right, so now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna cut these fuel lines, not with the grinder so that I don't throw sparks over, or with a manual saw, and the wires, and then I'm going to pull that fuel pump out and figure out which one of these lines is the main return, or the main line, the return line, and the vent lines, and then I will plumb up a fuel system and see what happens. All right, I got the fuel pump out, I figured out which lines are which, and now I'm gonna snap my fingers and a fuel system will be built. It's like magic. You ready? 3, 2, and 1. Boom. So now I've got a fuel system, and well, not the prettiest thing in the world, but it should be okay enough to crank this thing and see if it's gonna try to start. We'll see, I guess. I have sort of my doubts because sometimes whenever I throw fuel to it, it dumps it right back out of a vent tube, which is weird. And it was dumping like really, really dark fuel out of it. So there's some goop coming out of here. Look, if I get this fuel pump power, starting to purge the lines here. That's supposed to be like fuel colored, like that, not like black. All right, I've done some electrical troubleshooting, and these things aren't opening and you've got fuel pressure to them. It's probably an HEI control problem, and inside of the car, there was one. It was just sitting on the dash, and it goes right back there on the back of the carburetor, and it's got one on it. And this one looks used to me, doesn't look new. So I'm gonna guess that's one of the reasons why this thing was parked. The starter went out, or this went out or something. I don't know, but this doesn't look new, so I'm not even gonna put it on there. I'm just gonna go, I'm gonna get a 2-barrel to 4-barrel adapter because I've got fuel right here, so I can just pop a carburetor on there and call it good. All right, I completely lied. After doing some troubleshooting and things like that, I figured, you know what I've got in my possession? I've got a carburetor, I've got a 4-barrel intake, I've got new intake gaskets. Instead of just doing a 2 to 4-barrel adapter and having this thing run weird, we're just gonna throw a 4-barrel intake on it. So we're gonna start ripping this intake off here, throttle body, I mean everything to this intake. We're gonna pull it off, we're gonna put a 4-barrel intake on there, we're gonna put a carburetor on it. It's gonna be a lot less work. So here's a little montage. All right, I just popped the throttle body off, and there's an actual skull on the intake. Oh my God, what is that? Is that a bird? Is that a rat? Oh, it's got teeth. It's got teeth. I'm gonna put that on the dash. It's gonna be our little co-driver. Hold on. Oh yeah. Just gonna set that guy right about there. Bam. Little co-driver right there. All right, back to pulling this intake off. Oh yeah. Oh dude! This motor just grew up hardcore! This is a roller block! Alright, ladies and gentlemen, this thing just grew up hardcore. If you look in here, yes, I am gonna clean it out. Don't worry, I'm gonna clean out all these valleys and everything before I put the new thing on it, but this is a roller block. This is not a flat tappet block, which means this is a true LT1 block. That is insanely good. If you guys do not know, there's 2 different types of camshafts. There's ones with flat tappet, and rollers. Roller ones, well, I can't really show you, but you can see right here, this block does not have that plate right there. This is the 350 I pulled out of that Silverado. This is a flat tappet block. It has actual hard pieces of metal that go up and down on the camshaft. That one out there has ones with little rollers in them. They are a lot more reliable. You don't have to break them in a certain way. They have less of a tendency to go flat if you don't use the right oil. This is a super, super good sign for this motor. And I'm gonna have to do a little bit of research. I don't think this should have been a roller block factory. A lot of things are leading me to believe this might not be the original motor of the car, but I could very well be wrong. I'm gonna do some research and I'll put a little annotation right here if I am wrong or I am right, or if I never figured it out. I don't know. Maybe I just won't even research it, and I'll just think that everything's hunky-dory. Wow, that was a white person thing to say. All right, now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna vacuum up a bunch of that crap up out of there. I don't want any of that stuff getting into the intake or the pistons or anything like that, oil, etc., etc. So we're gonna vacuum that out of there. Then start putting that new carbureted intake on this thing. I'm happy right now. Very happy. Big moment. I'm gonna drop this intake on there, hopefully for the last time, because I won't take this thing back far. No obvious rat's nest or anything in here. It's gonna be a boom. Boom. Right there. All right, as you guys can tell, it got dark pretty quick. I have a tarp over this thing because it's supposed to rain tonight and tomorrow. But as I was about to put up the hood on this thing, I noticed a pretty interesting line here. If you look, it looks like at some point this thing had some sort of decal on here. I don't know exactly what this is, but it looks pretty well done with the curves and everything. If you guys know anything about this generation of cars and the fiberglass cowl induction hood, is this a common thing to see? I have no idea at all. Let me know down in the comments if you do, because I'm kind of curious. That looks like it was like at one point professionally done. All right, I've got a lot of things hooked back up. I've got the intake and everything put back together with a random carburetor I had laying around because my fancy one is junk. I need to rebuild it, but this is one of the ones that my buddy gave me to just test here. Like I said, I got everything hooked back up, and now we're gonna test and make sure that I still do have sparks. So let's hit this thing over. I sprayed some starter fluid in it, and what's happening? Yep, we still got spark. Awesome. All right, and just like that, that confirms we do have sparks. So let's hook up a fuel system to this thing, hook up that fuel pump, make sure these floats are not stuck, and then crank it. And this thing theoretically should start off that carburetor. It may not run perfectly. This thing was set up for a 460 big block, which will probably take a little bit more fuel than this thing's got, but it should be enough to run it and see what happens. So let's do that right now. I'm gonna hook up this fuel line real quick, and then we'll hook the fuel pump back up to it and try to start it again. All right, now with my throttle linkage, I can kind of fiddle it around within here. I can actually sit in the car, start it. Actually idled down like it was going to actually move those rear tires. That's a good sign. Alrighty, so I did some things off camera. Got the fuel system semi-secure. It's not going to go anywhere. Clean up the wiring. It's actually got terminals on the fuel pump now. It's grounded back here. Up front, I've got a panel in here where I'm going to put the switches and everything for the fuel pump. I've got the transmission thing like that. I've got an actual throttle linkage on here. I say actual, it's zip tied, but hey, it works. And well, Let's get this thing one more fire up before I go in for the night, because I do want to hear this thing actually run and idle for a little bit, because it sounded good last time. All right, I'm gonna do this again, because I think I might have found a vacuum leak that was making it run not great. It's the next day and it's windy, and I have a belt for this turd and a stud to get that air cleaner on this motor for hopefully the last time. So let's do that now. All right, so we had a few issues. I went to put the serpentine belt on there that I got ordered, and it turns out that it is the wrong size. This leads me to believe, again, that this motor might not be the original one that came in this car. The original belt size for this car would have been a 94 to 94.5 inch belt, is what would have came factory. I had to get a 91.5 inch belt to get this thing to even work. So this thing either has a different accessory drive on the front of it, or it has a different motor, and I had the wrong belt. I had to wait till the next day to get the right belt, so in the meantime, I picked up right here. All right, after bashing my head around for a little bit because I was very angry because I really did want this car to run for a while, I will retract my previous statement. They did sell me the right belt. However, this is either not the original motor for this car, or somebody has swapped over the serpentine belts, which wouldn't make sense. Why the hell would you put serpentine? Why would you swap serpentine belts on something that already has it? Normally you see that on like an older car that's hard to get belts for. They swap a serpentine belt onto it. Just easier to get one long belt than it is a bunch of little belts for the old school style. But I'm not entirely convinced this is the original motor for this car, because the original belt should be about 94 to 95 inches. This one, the belt I cut off of it, I measured it, is 91.75 inch long. So it requires like a 92-ish inch belt for it to be good. So I did a little bit of research. The only thing I can come up with that this thing having a belt size around there is a Corvette, but I'm not entirely convinced this is a Corvette motor. So maybe some pulleys on this thing got swapped. Maybe it has a different alternator, a different water pump or something from a different year, and it's making the pulley size wrong. I don't know, but we're gonna need to wait to another day to get that pulley done. So in the meantime, we're gonna do some other things. We're gonna finish up wiring. I actually got some good wiring things to finish up the wiring for the fuel pump. I'm going to actually assemble, sorry if it's windy, I'm going to actually assemble my switch panel that I've got going. I'm going to hook up a seat to it. I'm going to reassemble my seat with a broken foot. I'm going to basically just kind of screw it together to get it to be good enough to go around the block. Put some pieces of wood on the bottom of it to stabilize it, because the floor on this thing is rotten, and I just want to stabilize enough where I can put it around the block. It doesn't have to be anything more than that. And do a few other things like patch a brake line underneath, because I do have one that's leaking and I have the kit to fix it, so I might as well do it. And well, let's just do that. Right now I'm in the mood to work on this thing and knock some things out to get me closer. I want to have this thing basically ready so that when Monday comes around, I get the belt, I can drop it off the stand. I might even put tires on it. I'll be able to drop it off the stand and drive it whenever I have that belt. That'll be the very last piece of the puzzle. So let's do that. We're gonna start knocking things out, like I said, the wiring, the seat, probably put an air cleaner on it, the tires. I mean, we're just gonna start knocking things out and put a little montage up over here of just me knocking some things out. Like I said, wiring, all that crap. So let's get into it. All right, forgive me. I forgot to click record, but now the front of the seat's bolted in, and it's not bolted to the floor, but it's not going backwards anymore, which is what I needed to at least drive around the block. So it's not perfect, but it's better than what it was, and it'll drive around the block now. So move on to beautifying my wiring for my fuel pump, building my little skeeple dipple, my thingy-mabob, my switch panel with my ignition and my fuel and everything. I want to make it look a little bit better than not just wires that are zip tied everywhere. I want to put them in the piece of wood that's chilling there. So I'm gonna do that, beautify that, and then put tires on it. Actually, I'll put some tires on it. I think I have the right tires. We'll see. But I'm gonna put some tires on it and then fix a brake leak in the back, and then we can set this thing down on the ground, and then now we're just waiting for the right belt. So that sucks, but we're a lot closer than we ever have been, so let's do it. All right, I've got a belt that should work. Let's do it. Hey, there we go. Now we have a belt. It's a hair tight, but it'll work. All right. Now that we have a belt on it, let's let this thing run for a little bit and get it up to temp. Make sure it's not gonna, you know, throw a belt. Make sure the alternator's gonna charge. Make sure all my water pump works. Let's get this thing. Let's let this thing get up to temp, shall we? I'm an idiot. There's a coolant sensor bung on this intake. Oh, you guys missed it, but I'm dumping coolant. And I'm an idiot. I know exactly where it's coming from now. There's coolant temp sensor bung on this intake, and it's just wide open. I never put anything in there, so that's why it's dumping coolant everywhere. Let me fix that. All right, it's got a bung on there. There's a hose with the heater core. Let's see if it'll leak. Hope it doesn't. Okay, I have a rudimentary throttle return spring hooked up now, so let's get it going again. It's got coolant in it now. Let's get it up to operating temp, see what it does. So because I'm an idiot and I forget to click record sometimes, I'm going to fill in some of the gaps that'll be upcoming here. We did let this thing get right up to temperature. It sounded great, started right up, idled down pretty good. And the electric fan never kicked on. Turns out it's not wired up to anything. So I off camera wired it up, wired it right just straight to the battery, so that whenever the battery is connected to this car, the electric fan is running, because these things will overheat without that electric fan running. They do not get a lot of air into them, especially if the air dam on this thing's messed up, and I haven't even looked at it. After I got that wired up, I moved over to the rear brakes, and only to learn that the rear brakes are basically just junk. As soon as I touched the rear brake line, it disintegrated in my hand. So it's going to be really, really good at burnouts, but it's not going to have rear brakes. So I'm going to talk here in a minute in the video, and then we're going to move on to putting tires onto this thing, and then hopefully taking this thing out for a drive. Oh yeah, that was a big win right there. Got it up right to the middle of the gauge. The fan is wired up to its own relay, so I'm going to have to rewire the fan so that it doesn't immediately overheat. I'm going to have to, like I said, get my plug wires off of the exhaust manifolds. Do a little bit here. Bleed the cooling system probably, because I'm sure it's going to need it. Throw some wheels and tires on it, fix the broken brake line, and I might be able to take this thing for a drive, actually. This is big, dude. This is real big. I think this radiator might be yeah. Woo! That was not yummy. I think the radiator might have a hole in it. It looks a little bit wet. All right, ladies and gentlemen. It's like 3 weeks later. The rear tires had lug nuts that were sunk into the aluminum rims, and they had anodized completely. I let them soak in like PB Blaster, sprayed them like every day after work for like 2 weeks. Finally able to get them off. Threw some junk tires on there that hold air better than the ones that were on it. And it's time. It's time, ladies and gentlemen. This thing is gonna make its maiden voyage. The first time since 2005-ish. Not gonna go very far, because like I said, this rear end is ready to fall out of this car because the rust, but I'm taking this thing around the block, and it's going to be glorious. that thing drove. Now, may have been around the block, but like I said, I do not trust the tires that are on it right now. They're from like 2005 and are really, really badly weather cracked. The rear end's about ready to fall out of it, but that thing shifted. That is big. That's really big. This is a big moment right here. All right, so this is kind of filmed out of order here, but I'm actually super surprised that the transmission even did anything, because I didn't show you guys, but the fluid in it was pretty dark. It smelled really bad. It did not show signs of being alive, but that thing actually did grab all 3 of the gears and reverse when I backed it in here, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, as you guys can see, the tires are already flat. It's the day after. This one on the back surprisingly held air, even though if you look at it, it's extremely weather checked everywhere. So that's why I don't really trust these tires going anywhere farther than around the block at like maybe 10-15 miles an hour. Over here on the other side, they're already flat. This thing held air for like an hour. So, but on the bright side, this thing actually moves under its own power. I can drive it around my garage. I can move it wherever I want to work on it under its own power now. So that's a super big success. First time this thing moved under its own power in, like I said, 20 years. So that's a big thing. Big deal right here. I'm excited. All right, I'm gonna do one more thing. I'm gonna back it in real quick. All right, and that's where this video is going to end. We did actually get this thing running and driving for the first time since 05-ish. So about 2 decades, this thing's been sitting in a field, and now it is moving under its own power. I know we didn't do a lot with it. I know it wasn't a very long drive, but like I said, the rear end of this thing is ready to fall out of this car. This thing has really bad rust, and I need to take care of it before I take it any more than around the block. I'd really hate to get overzealous, take it around the more than just the block and have the rear end fall out of the car. And now again, I have a car that won't drive around and move around. It's a lot of my own power. Like I said, my plan for a lot of these cars is just to get them running and driving good enough where I can move them around. If I want to work on the Nissan, I can pull it out from my backyard, work on it, put it back there when I'm done until it's ready to be a good daily driver. Same thing with the Firebird, and not so much with the Mercedes, because I don't know if the video is out or not whenever this thing comes up, but we found something really bad with that Mercedes. But like I said, I'd hate to get overzealous, drive this thing and have the rear end fall out from under it. So that's where this video is going to end. If you guys ever had these cars, let me know down in the comments below. There's been a couple people that have left comments saying, hey, I had one of those things, or hey, I still do. These things are awesome cars, yada. Let me know what your thoughts of these things are down in the comments. And let me know what your thoughts are of the channel just in general down in the comments. If you guys want to see more Firebird stuff, more Mercedes stuff, more Nissan stuff, etc., let me know down in the comments below. I build this channel off of your guys' comments. Without your comments, I'm an idiot. With your comments, I'm a little bit more of a well-informed idiot. But that's where this video is going to end. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you guys like this type of stuff. Hit that bell if you want to be notified whenever I upload next. And I hope you guys are having a good day, night, week, whatever it is. I hope you guys are having a great one, and hope to see you guys in the next video. Peace out and goodbye. I didn't want to be the guy that, filmed random children without their consent. That'd probably put me on a watch list somewhere.
Mr. nicknames his private member Lazarus because he has risen from